Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? This time, we're tackling a life that basically redefined brilliance. Marie Curie.
Oh, yeah, a total scientific powerhouse.
Mm.
I mean, her discoveries still impact us today, big time.
Oh, we've got these excerpts from a scientific paper about her. I'm not going to lie, kind of geeking out a bit. But, beyond the Nobel Prizes and all the groundbreaking research, I'm really fascinated by the person behind it all. Like, what was she like? What kept her going?
Right, that's what I love about these deep dives. It's not just about the facts and figures, but the human story and hers. It's
True.
all about resilience, passion, and just this unstoppable drive for knowledge.
Okay, so rewind with me all the way back. Marie Skłodowska. Born in Warsaw, 1867. Not exactly the easiest time or place to be, let alone a woman aiming to break barriers, huh?
Yeah, Warsaw was under Russian rule then. Opportunities for women,
Yeah.
forget it, especially in higher education. It was like hitting a brick wall.
But wait, both her parents were educators. Dad taught physics and chemistry, and mom was head of a really prestigious girls' school. So education was like the thing in her family.
Oh, absolutely. It was everything to them. They basically instilled this love for learning in Marie and her siblings. Like it was the key to changing your life, that kind of thing.
Makes it even more tragic that she lost her mom when she was only 11. That must have been, wow, to lose a parent that young.
Devastating, no doubt. But instead of giving in to despair, she basically poured herself into her studies, aced everything, always at the top of her class. Like she found comfort and strength in knowledge.
It's incredible how some people find purpose in the hardest moments. But let's be honest, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Her family struggled financially, and she had to work as a governess for a while.
3 years, actually. Put her own dreams on hold to help her sister Bronia go to med school in Paris.
Yeah.
That's some serious dedication.
Wow, that's a huge sacrifice. But eventually, she made it to Paris herself. Sorbonne, 1891. What a moment.
Imagine this, a class of 2,000 students at the Faculty of Sciences, right?
Mm.
And she's one of only 23 women. Talk about pressure.
That must have been daunting, but also kind of empowering, like being one of the few brave enough to step into that world.
Brave, sure, but brilliant too. Our source talks about her focus, always front row, completely absorbed in everything. But man, those early years in Paris were rough. Tiny attic room, freezing, barely any food. She even fainted sometimes from exhaustion.
It's kind of heartbreaking to hear about what she went through, but it also shows how strong she was.
Oh, absolutely. There's this thing about her diet back then that really stuck with me. Like tea and bread and butter for weeks at a time, maybe a couple of eggs or a bit of chocolate as a treat. That's it.
It's hard to believe someone could even function on that, let alone excel in their studies. It shows how dedicated she was.
Right? And despite all that, she got her physics degree. Oh, and mastered French while she was at it. Multitasking level. Marie Curie.
Then decides, you know what, let's get another degree, this time mathematics. This woman was unstoppable.
She knew math was crucial for her science, for sure.
Yeah.
And while studying, she starts working in a lab at the Sorbonne. Magnetic properties of steel, that kind of thing.
So even during those tough years, she's already making waves in the scientific world.
Totally. And this detail, it just says everything about her. She got a fellowship, 600 rubles, which was a lot back then. And guess what? Donated the whole thing so other students could benefit.
No way. She really put her money where her mouth was, huh? It shows how much she cared about her fellow students, about making knowledge available for everyone.
Exactly. It wasn't about her. It was about something bigger. And speaking of bigger, this is where Pierre Curie walks onto the scene.
Ah, the meeting that changed scientific history. Was it love at first sight? Or more like minds meeting?
From the very beginning, they connected through science. Both super curious, loved discovering things, didn't care much about fame or fortune. The real deal.
Sounds like true kindred spirits. Two brains totally in sync.
Their honeymoon. Perfect example. Forget fancy trips. They rode bicycles through the countryside, enjoyed simple food, basic lodgings. That's them in a nutshell.
A match made in science heaven.
Back in Paris, they get a small apartment, nothing fancy, and it's all about the research. That was their happy place, their world.
So let's get to the research that made them legends. It all started with Henri Becquerel and those mysterious rays from uranium salts, right?
Yep. Becquerel saw that uranium compounds left marks on photographic plates, even when covered. Marie was intrigued, and she went deep.
I can just picture her in the lab, totally captivated. But her setup, not exactly ideal, right? What was she dealing with?
Oh, they gave her a damp little storage room in the school basement where Pierre worked. Terrible ventilation, barely any equipment, definitely not the place for precise measurements.
It's mind-blowing that she made such huge discoveries in that environment. What did she actually find?
So first she confirmed what Becquerel saw with uranium. Then, boom, thorium compounds do the same thing, emitting those rays.
So she expanded our understanding of what we now call radioactivity.
Exactly. And then she noticed something really weird. The radiation from uranium and thorium was way stronger than it should have been, based on how much of the element was there.
That's got to be a head-scratcher. Like, wait a minute, what did she make of that?
Marie, brilliant as ever, concluded there must be another element hiding in those minerals, something way more radioactive than uranium or thorium.
Light bulb moment. So the hunt was on for this mystery element.
It became their shared mission. Pierre saw how big this was, dropped his own work to join her.
Talk about a power couple, and it paid off, didn't it?
Oh yeah. They worked nonstop, breaking down pitchblende, this uranium-rich ore, separating and analyzing every little bit.
And this is where they hit the jackpot. Two new elements.
You got it. July 1898, they announced polonium, named after Marie's beloved Poland, of course. Then, December, same year, another discovery, radium.
An element that would change the world forever. But I'm guessing isolating these things wasn't easy.
Nope, not at all. They needed tons of pitchblende. Refining it was backbreaking work.
I've read about those crazy conditions. Tell me more.
They got tons of pitchblende leftovers from a mine in Bohemia. Basically waste, but for them, pure gold. And their lab, this leaky old shack.
A far cry from a fancy lab. What was it like in there?
Imagine this. Basic tables, a chalkboard, a rusty stove. Marie described stirring boiling stuff all day with this iron rod, almost as tall as her. They were constantly exhausted.
It sounds so tough. But even then, they were happy, right?
Totally. Marie later wrote that those were the happiest years, completely immersed in their work. It shows how passionate they were, how much joy they found in discovery.
That's incredible, to find such fulfillment despite everything. Okay, so after years of this intense work, they finally isolate radium in 1902. But even then, they're still struggling financially.
Sadly, yeah. Pierre's salary at the School of Physics was tiny, and they had a young daughter to take care of. He even applied for a professorship at the Sorbonne in '98, but got rejected.
Seriously. With his reputation, and Marie's working crazy hours too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Research, teaching at a women's college, they were pushing themselves to the limit, neglecting their own well-being.
The toll must have been immense.
You bet. There are stories about Pierre having terrible leg pain, and Marie was always pale and thin. But the research continued, and they started understanding just how remarkable radioactivity was.
And its potential to treat cancer, right? That must have blown people's minds back then.
Oh yeah, it was revolutionary. People saw radium as this miracle cure. The whole world was fascinated. Scientists, especially in Belgium and the US, wanted to know how to isolate it. So Marie and Pierre, they're at a crossroads.
Patent it, keep the secret, maybe make some money finally.
Wow.
Or share it with everyone. Tough choice, especially when they were still struggling.
Huge dilemma. They get this letter from American engineers wanting to know the process for obtaining radium. That's when they really had to face it. Profit versus scientific progress.
What a situation. What were they thinking? Which way were they leaning?
They talked about it, but it was a short conversation. Pierre's like, should we patent it? And Marie, just like that, says, no way. It goes against the whole spirit of science.
Wow, powerful stuff. That's some serious dedication to open knowledge.
Pierre, he's obviously relieved, agrees completely, just says, yeah, you're right. And that was it. They gave their knowledge to the world, no strings attached, put the greater good first.
Such an amazing example of integrity in science. But people noticed their work, right? Awards and recognitions started coming in.
Oh yeah, big time. June 1903, they get the Davy Medal from the Royal Institute in England. Then the big one, the Nobel Prize in Physics.
Shared with Becquerel, of course. That had to feel incredible, right? Such validation for all their work.
Imagine being there, standing on that stage, receiving the highest honor. A huge moment, not just for them, but for science itself. And thankfully, the prize money helped, you know.
Yeah.
Pierre could teach less and focus more on research.
Sounds like things were finally looking up for them, professionally and personally.
It seemed like it. But even with the fame, life wasn't perfect, you know. Marie wrote about all the attention, the noise, how it disrupted their quiet life. And then in December 1904, in the middle of all that chaos, their second daughter, Eve, is born.
Parenthood, teaching, groundbreaking research, and now fame on top of it all. Talk about a full plate.
For real. And finally, France starts giving Pierre the recognition he deserved. 1905, he's elected to the Academy of Sciences. The Sorbonne creates a special physics position just for him. It was like everything was falling into place.
A happy ending, right? Except we know it doesn't quite work out that way.
Sadly not. Fate had other plans. April 1906, just a year after all those achievements. Pierre's walking across a busy street, gets hit by a horse-drawn carriage. Instant.
It's hard to imagine how Marie must have felt. That kind of loss.
Yeah.
Devastating.
It changed everything for her. There was this deep sadness about her from then on. Like a part of her was gone forever.
It's amazing that she kept going at all, but she did, didn't she? Stronger than ever.
She was incredible. The French government offered her a pension, to support her. She refused. I can still work, she said. She was only 38.
Such independence, wow. And then another historic moment.
May 1906. The Faculty of Sciences at the Sorbonne, they appoint Marie to Pierre's old position. The first woman to ever hold a university chair in France.
What a moment in history. A true testament to her brilliance and dedication. I wonder about her first lecture. Must have been incredibly emotional.
There's this account. It's really moving. The lecture hall is packed. Everyone wants to be there. Will she talk about Pierre? Will she thank the university? You could feel the anticipation.
To stand there with all those people watching, carrying the weight of history, that takes courage.
She does. She walks in, acknowledges the applause, then sits down. Calm, collected, even though inside. Yeah, who knows? And she starts her lecture. The exact same words Pierre used to end his last one.
Wow. What a beautiful way to honor him, like saying, his work continues, we're in this together.
Exactly. Not words of grief, but the language of science. The thing that connected them, they both loved.
Marie Curie takes on her new role, not replacing Pierre, but continuing their shared passion, their pursuit of knowledge. So what happens next?
Her career keeps soaring. Awards and honors from all over the world. Although, get this, the French Academy of Sciences initially rejected her membership. Talk about prejudice.
You'd think with all her accomplishments, it's infuriating that she still had to deal with that. But the scientific world, for the most part, recognized her genius, right?
Yeah. And then 1911, another huge milestone cementing her place in history.
Wait, don't tell me, another Nobel Prize.
A bingo, this time chemistry. For isolating radium and polonium, the first person to ever win 2 Nobel Prizes. She became a global icon.
It's hard to even comprehend the level of brilliance and dedication it takes to achieve something like that. And this is around when the Radium Institute is founded in Paris, right?
Yep. A collaboration between the Sorbonne and the Pasteur Institute. 2 parts. Marie leads the radioactivity lab, and there's a section for biological research and cancer treatment.
So her work wasn't just theoretical, it was leading to life-saving treatments.
Exactly. And she donates a gram of radium to the Institute. Worth a fortune back then. Again, putting the greater good first.
It's amazing how she always chose to share her discoveries. There's also that story about American women and radium, right? Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. 1921, a group of American women, huge fans of Marie's, raised enough money to buy her a gram of radium. They invited her to the U.S., too. Everyone was so excited to see her. Lectures, receptions, honorary degrees.
What an experience to be celebrated like that. But I bet it was exhausting, especially with her health already being affected by radiation exposure.
You're right. She was 54, and the trip took its toll. Even with all the awards and attention, doctors told her to go back to France, rest up.
It's a reminder that even the brightest minds are still human. What happened next? Did she keep working even though her health was declining?
Marie Curie was not the type to give up easily. She went right back to the Radium Institute, leading her students and colleagues, working tirelessly. And there's this really touching story about a Radium Institute in Warsaw. It shows how much her legacy meant.
I'd love to hear it. What happened?
So they named it the Maria Skłodowska-Curie Institute, a tribute to her Polish roots. And remember, those American women who gave her radium for the Paris Institute, well, they were so touched by her dedication to her homeland that they raised money for another gram of radium, this time for the Warsaw Institute.
That's incredible, a testament to how much her work resonated with people worldwide. But sadly, all those years working with radioactive materials, they had a lasting impact.
They did. Marie was super strict about safety for her students, but she often didn't follow the rules herself. She rarely got those mandatory blood tests, and the few she did take showed problems.
It's almost tragic, isn't it, that her passion for science, for unlocking the secrets of the universe, might have ultimately contributed to her decline. What were those last years like?
Yeah, it's tough to think about. She knew the risks, but she just couldn't stay away. I guess when you're that driven, It's hard to stop, even when it's hurting you.
It makes you wonder, was it a sense of urgency? Like she felt there was so much more to do to discover?
Maybe. She had this endless curiosity, always pushing the limits. And in the end, her body just couldn't keep up. It's sad, really.
So how did it end? What were those final years like?
Well, after all that time handling radium, breathing it in, even getting burns, her health just went downhill. Cataracts, ringing in her ears, fatigue, anemia. Then at 34, she got the flu, bedridden. And her immune system, probably weakened by the radiation, just couldn't fight it off.
It's heartbreaking that the very element she helped discover might have contributed to her passing. What a legacy, though. How is she remembered?
She died on July 4th, 1934, 66 years old, aplastic anemia, directly linked to radiation exposure. The funeral was small, just family, friends, colleagues. Very simple, which is fitting considering how humble she was.
A fitting end to a life that was both extraordinary and, in some ways, very ordinary. Groundbreaking achievements, but also simple joys.
Exactly. And even now, she's still an inspiration, buried next to Pierre in the Pantheon in Paris, one of France's most respected figures.
It's amazing to think how her work still affects us today, right? Medical treatments, nuclear energy, our whole understanding of the universe.
It goes way beyond science, too, inspiring generations of scientists, especially women, to push boundaries and fight for their place.
It's been incredible learning about Marie Curie. Her strength, brilliance, selflessness, truly inspiring. A pioneer who broke barriers and changed the world. But her story also reminds us that progress isn't always easy. Sometimes it comes at a cost.
Absolutely. And it makes us think, how do we balance discovery with protecting ourselves, the environment? How do we make sure science is used for good, not for harm?
And how do we honor the people who came before us, those who dedicated their lives to pushing the limits of knowledge? How do we carry that torch forward? What do you think? Share your thoughts with us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.